Have you ever felt that overwhelming urge to just vanish from everything and everyone? That feeling when your phone notifications become too much, social obligations feel suffocating, and the constant noise of life seems unbearable? I know that feeling well. It's that moment when your soul is desperately trying to tell you something profound, something that the 18th century philosopher Immanuel Kant understood deeply. What if I told you that this desire to disappear isn't a flaw or weakness, but actually the wisest part of yourself, trying to guide you toward what Kant would call your transcendental freedom? In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal why this impulse to withdraw is actually your soul's most authentic guidance system, and how understanding it through Kant's philosophy can transform your experience from one of guilt to profound self-connection. That feeling of wanting to disappear, we've been taught to see it as antisocial, maybe even selfish. Society labels it as avoidance or escapism. Friends and family might worry when you pull away, but what if our modern interpretation has it completely backward? Kant distinguished between the phenomenal world, the world of appearances and social constructs, and the noumenal world, the deeper reality beyond perception. Your desire to retreat isn't running from reality. It's your soul's attempt to connect with a deeper reality that exists beyond the constant stimulation of modern life. At the core of this experience is what I call transcendental withdrawal, a concept inspired by Kant's understanding of how we access our authentic selves. Kant believed that genuine freedom comes not from following external impulses or social expectations, but from following universal principles that arise from pure reason. Similarly, this need to withdraw isn't random. It's a fundamental mechanism of your psychological and spiritual system trying to reconnect with your authentic self. Think of it like a compass that always points toward your true north. When life becomes overwhelming, this compass activates, creating that unmistakable feeling of needing to step away from it all. It's like the sensation of hunger, an internal signal with profound wisdom behind it. Just as hunger tells you your body needs nourishment, the desire to disappear tells you your soul needs reconnection with itself. There are 5 distinct types of transcendental withdrawal that we all experience, each serving a unique purpose in our spiritual and psychological development. Understanding which one you're experiencing can help you honor it properly instead of fighting against it. The first type is protective withdrawal. This manifests as a sudden, almost visceral need to cancel plans, turn off your phone, or close your door to the world. You might feel overwhelmed by social situations that normally energize you, or find yourself making excuses to avoid interactions. Psychologically, this happens when your internal boundaries have been compromised for too long, when you've given too much of yourself away without replenishing your inner resources. Kant would describe this as your rational mind recognizing a violation of your autonomy, the principle that you should never be treated merely as a means to others' ends. The wisdom here is that your soul values your wholeness more than external approval, and it's trying to protect your integrity. The second type is integrative withdrawal. This feels like mental fatigue or cognitive overwhelm, when information, decisions, and stimulation become too much to process. You might find yourself staring into space, unable to absorb more information or make even simple choices. You crave simplicity and quiet. The psychological mechanism here relates to what Kant called the unity of apperception, your mind's need to synthesize experiences into a coherent whole. When you've taken in too much without processing it, your system signals for space to integrate. The message here is that wisdom doesn't come from endless information, but from the integration of experience into understanding. The third is creative withdrawal. You might recognize this as that restless feeling, an inner tension or creative pressure that makes you want to escape routine. It often comes with vague dissatisfaction with normal activities. Psychologically, this represents what Kant might call the productive imagination, the faculty that helps us generate new possibilities beyond current reality. It activates when your creative self needs expression. The wisdom here is that your soul isn't just meant to consume and respond. It's designed to create and contribute uniquely to the world. The fourth type is existential withdrawal. This is perhaps the deepest form, a profound questioning of meaning and purpose that makes everyday concerns seem suddenly trivial. You might feel disconnected from activities that previously seemed important, experiencing a kind of emptiness or void. This relates to what Kant called the transcendental ideas, those concepts like freedom, immortality, and meaning that reason inevitably leads us toward. This withdrawal activates when your soul needs to reconnect with your deepest values and existential truth. The message here is that a meaningful life requires periodic reconnection with your most fundamental principles. The fifth type is intuitive withdrawal. This manifests as a quiet knowing that you need space, often before you can articulate why. You might feel inexplicably drawn to solitude or nature without a logical reason. This corresponds to what Kant called reflective judgment, a way of knowing that doesn't proceed from rules, but rather seeks harmony within experience. It activates when your intuitive wisdom needs to be heard above the noise of logical thinking. The message here is that your deepest wisdom often speaks through subtle feelings rather than clear thoughts. What drives all these forms of withdrawal? At their core is a fundamental question that Kant would appreciate. How can I be true to myself while existing in a world that constantly pulls me away from my authentic being? This question becomes particularly pressing in moments when we feel that urge to disappear. I'd like to pause here and ask you, which of these 5 types of withdrawal resonates most with what you're experiencing right now in your life? Take a moment to reflect on this, and if you feel comfortable, share your experience in the comments below. You might write something like, "I'm experiencing ease withdrawal because I feel hot regoms, and what I really need is wall." Sharing your experience not only helps you clarify what you're going through, but creates a sense of connection with others who might be feeling similarly isolated in their experience. There's something powerfully healing about realizing you're not alone in these profound inner movements. Now, let's talk about how to honor these withdrawal impulses in a way that brings healing rather than guilt or conflict. The first step is to recognize the legitimacy of your need for transcendental withdrawal. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Kant emphasized the importance of respecting the moral law within us. And these withdrawal impulses are part of your internal moral compass guiding you toward authentic being. Begin by creating small, philosophical retreats in your daily life. Even 15 minutes of complete solitude can be transformative when approached intentionally. During these times, ask yourself these 4 questions. What external voices am I most aware of right now? What would my own voice say if those were silent? What principle or value feels most important to honor right now? And what one small action would align me with that principle? Notice what arises in response to these questions. The answers might come as words, feelings, images, or simply a sense of rightness. The key is not to analyze, but to receive what emerges. You might experience clarity about a decision, a creative insight, emotional release, or simply a sense of coming home to yourself. These responses are what Kant would call your categorical imperatives, the principles that should guide your actions from a place of genuine freedom. Here's the paradox at the heart of this practice, and Kant was a master of identifying such paradoxes. The impulse to disappear, when honored rather than resisted, actually enables a more authentic appearance in the world. By withdrawing temporarily from the phenomenal world of appearances and social roles, you reconnect with the noumenal dimension of your being, your true self beyond all roles and expectations. This is why people who honor their need for withdrawal often return to engagement with renewed clarity, creativity, and presence. Kant introduced us to a profound concept he called the kingdom of ends, an ideal community where each person is treated as an end in themselves, rather than merely as a means to others' purposes. What's revolutionary about this idea in our current context is that honoring your need to withdraw is actually how you preserve your ability to participate authentically in relationships. By maintaining your integrity through healthy withdrawal, you bring your whole self to your connections rather than a depleted, fragmented version. In contrast to this wisdom, our modern world operates on principles of constant connectivity, endless productivity, and perpetual availability. The philosophical term for this is categorical instrumentalism, treating everything, including ourselves, as mere instruments for some external purpose. We're expected to be endlessly available, productive, responsive. Historical contemplative traditions, from monastic practices to philosophical schools like Kant's, recognized what we've forgotten: that withdrawal isn't opposed to engagement, but is its necessary complement. Eastern philosophies call this the rhythm of yin and yang, the inward movement that must balance the outward expression. Kant might call it the necessary retreat into reason that allows for principled action in the world. What's truly revolutionary about reclaiming this perspective in today's world is that it challenges the very metrics by which we measure a successful life. Rather than asking, how much can I do? How visible can I be? How much can I acquire? It invites us to ask, how authentically can I live? How aligned can my actions be with my deepest principles? How fully can I honor the moral law within me? These are the questions Kant would have us consider. If you're finding value in this perspective and want to continue exploring these philosophical insights about our inner experiences, I invite you to join our community by subscribing to this channel. We're on a journey of discovering how ancient wisdom and philosophical thought can illuminate our most personal, modern struggles. This path of self-understanding isn't something we need to walk alone. While the journey inward is deeply personal, having companions who understand and support that journey makes all the difference. Each week, we explore another aspect of this inner terrain, offering practical wisdom for living a more examined, intentional life. Subscribe now to continue this exploration together. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Kant intuited through pure reason, that our brains require periods of what scientists call default mode network activation, times when we're not focused on external tasks, but allowed to wander in internal reflection. This network is crucial for identity formation, moral reasoning, and creative insight, all the things Kant associated with our higher rational faculties. Research shows that without adequate activation of this network, our decision-making, emotional regulation, and sense of self all suffer. What's fascinating is how closely these findings align with Kant's insistence that true freedom comes not from following external influences, but from finding the universal principles within our own reason. So that feeling of wanting to disappear, it's not something to overcome or resist. It's your soul's wisdom speaking in the language of feeling, guiding you toward what Kant would call your highest good, the harmony of happiness with moral worth. When you honor this impulse appropriately, something remarkable happens. The very world you wanted to escape from becomes transformed. Not because the external circumstances have changed, but because you've changed your relationship to them. You're no longer overwhelmed by phenomenal reality because you're grounded in something deeper, what Kant called the noumenal dimension of existence. The next time you feel that pull to withdraw, remember that it's not a flaw in your character, but a feature of your wisdom. It's your soul's elegant guidance system working perfectly. This path of self-understanding isn't something we need to walk alone. While the journey inward is deeply personal, having companions who understand and support that journey makes all the difference. Each week, we explore another aspect of this inner terrain, offering practical wisdom for living a more examined, intentional life. Subscribe now to continue this exploration together. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Kant intuited through pure reason, that our brains require periods of what scientists call default mode network activation, times when we're not focused on external tasks, but allowed to wander in internal reflection. This network is crucial for identity formation, moral reasoning, and creative insight, all the things Kant associated with our higher rational faculties. Research shows that without adequate activation of this network, our decision-making, emotional regulation, and sense of self all suffer. What's fascinating is how closely these findings align with Kant's insistence that true freedom comes not from following external influences, but from finding the universal principles within our own reason. So that feeling of wanting to disappear, it's not something to overcome or resist. It's your soul's wisdom speaking in the language of feeling, guiding you toward what Kant would call your highest good, the harmony of happiness with moral worth. When you honor this impulse appropriately, something remarkable happens. The very world you wanted to escape from becomes transformed. Not because the external circumstances have changed, but because you've changed your relationship to them. You're no longer overwhelmed by phenomenal reality because you're grounded in something deeper, what Kant called the noumenal dimension of existence. The next time you feel that pull to withdraw, remember that it's not a flaw in your character, but a feature of your wisdom. It's your soul's elegant guidance system working perfectly, showing you the way back to your authentic self. In a world that constantly pulls us into fragmentation, the desire to disappear is the counterbalance that guides us back to wholeness. As Kant might say, it's not an escape from reality, but the very path by which we discover a deeper reality, the reality of our true nature beyond all appearances. And in that discovery lies the freedom we've been seeking all along.